and welcome to this week's episode. I am joined by Valerie and Leslie, my very best real estate attorneys in all Florida. How are you, ladies?
Hi, Dolly. Great to, join you every week to have a new
Yes,
topic of real estate.
so
Yes, I'm
excited to
very
be here.
excited. Today, we're going to talk about understanding the cost on the seller's expenses whenever we are doing a real estate transaction. So most times that not, sellers don't understand what they're paying for, and at closing, they're expecting one number, and then voila, there's another number that they're receiving rather than what they initially thought. So can you guys walk me through the expenses for the seller side, please?
Yes, of course. I think the most important thing that every seller needs to focus on is the contract, right? The contract is going to specifically lay out all the costs that are associated with the seller and what those costs may be. So if you could see there, 9A lists exactly all the fees that a seller is going to have to pay. And we could start by one of the fees that are guaranteed that a seller will pay, which is going to be the doc stamps on recording of the deed. Now, the deed is what's going to now pass title onto the new buyers. That document stamp taxes is issued by the county where you are selling the property. And that is paid the day the deed is recorded, and it's based off of the sale price. That is a guaranteed fee that the sellers are going to have to pay unless otherwise negotiated with the buyers. But that is a fee that the sellers can rely that they're more than likely going to have to pay the day of closing. Then
Perfect.
another, um,
Go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead. I said perfect.
So then another fee that is also guaranteed that a seller will have to pay are the estoppel fees associated with the association. So if there is, for instance, an association that your property belongs to, that company or the title company that's representing the buyers is going to get what's called an estoppel from that association. That estoppel fee is dependent on the association, typically anywhere between 250 and 450, and that's a fee that the sellers are required to pay unless otherwise negotiated with the buyers.
Got it.
And
Okay.
then the more commonly known fees is the title search and lien search fee. And those fees are usually going to be paid by the seller if we're talking about Miami-Dade County and Broward County properties. If
Mhm.
we're talking about properties up north, then that's a fee that's going to be passed on to the buyer. But title search fees and lien search fees will belong to the seller if we're talking about Miami-Dade County or Broward County.
Perfect. Okay. So let's kind of talk about what closings costs are. Closing costs are fees associated, the expenses associated with the process of closing a real estate transactions. So a buyer has their own closing cost and the seller has their own closing cost. So in this video, we're only talking about the seller's portion closing cost. We're going to be doing another video talking about the buyer's closing cost. So I am glad you mentioned that. This is, by the way, this is the assist contract. That is the one that most realtors use in the state of Florida. This might be true or not in another state. So I'm not sure. I can't talk uh, to other states other than Florida and Kentucky. In Kentucky, the contract itself, it's not like this. And it doesn't really have the fees associated with the sale, but a real estate agent will be able to explain them to you without any issues. So, what other fees are there that is very important to know
For the seller,
for the seller? Because what about, because most of the time there's a lot of buyers, I'm sorry, sellers that will ask me about this 125%, and I keep telling them that it's not on
FERPTA.
them. If you don't mind, yes, the FIRPA.
FERPTA is for foreign people. That means that if a foreign national is trying to sell a property they own within the United States, there is a tax that has to be paid to the IRS, and that's what it means on that clause. That a specific percentage of the total sale proceed have to be escrow out the title company.
Call back. Yep.
Right. And the title company has to send the check to the IRS, or the title company is responsible for that amount. But that is only if that person that is selling the property, if it's a foreign person, whether a company or an individual, it doesn't matter. If it's foreign, then it has to pay the IRS the fee that it's applied to the sale, to the transaction.
And
Perfect.
FERPA can get very complicated and very convoluted. So it's very important if you are a seller and you are a foreigner to inquire with an attorney about this, because there are some exceptions that apply to FERPA that may apply to you. So it's very important that before you decide that you're going to, sell your property and you are a foreign national, to talk to an attorney, talk to your real estate agent, talk to Dolly. She's gonna know how to guide you in this area, and she's gonna know who to they guide you to when it comes to these fees associated with what's called FERPTA withholding.
Perfect. Okay. Any other fees associated with this? I will want to add that the seller normally pays for the commission for the realtors. So the seller pays the listing agent a commission, and out of that commission, the listing agent pays the buyer's agent a commission.
Correct.
That's normally how it works. Then the other expenses that they might have is just the title work, but it's
Well, and then the attorney's fees, because remember,
attorney fees.
a seller has to be in the state of Florida, has to be represented by an attorney. Why? Because what the seller brings to the table of closing is legal documents that will transfer the property to that buyer. And that can only be drafted by an attorney with a license. So it's very important for those sellers that hires title company. They're violating Florida law, because title companies that are not owned or managed or regulated by an attorney, they don't have the legal capacity to draft the conveyance documents, and they are practicing, unlicensed, it's
The
they're
unlicensed practice of law.
right, the unlicensed practice of law. They could get like heavy fees for doing such things. So the sellers don't want to be involved in that situation when they get questioned as to why they hire a title company rather than an attorney for a legal service.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Let me ask you, what happens if the buyer wants to use their own title company, but the sellers decides to go with a title company that in fact have attorneys in staff? Like what happens then? So there's two title companies, one with an attorney, one not with an attorney. One is representing the buyer. Can the other one represent the seller? How does that work? How does that look like?
So
It's
we go ahead, Les.
So it's fine. The seller can be represented by a title company as long as it's either owned or it's supervised by an attorney that it's actually making sure that the legal documents drafted are correct, and his name or her name will appear on the conveyance document at the top of the deed probably, or he will be sworn in at some point within those documents that he was the legal agent that drafted or prepared or supervised the drafting of the documents. Now, a buyer does not have to be represented by attorney. However, we always 100% encourage people to use an attorney instead of a title company that is not owned by attorneys, because of all of the legal implication that comes with the closing and can get very confusing. And at the same time, an attorney representing a buyer will work so much better with the attorney for the seller than a simple title company that doesn't understand the consequences of not doing things in the legal and correct way, than if you are using an attorney that understands everything that is going on behind the scenes, behind than just getting to print the closing package and having a buyer sign the package at closing. It's so much more than that, and only an attorney with real estate training will understand the reason behind this.
Yeah, yeah, because I initially thought before I got into real estate that an attorney knew about everything. And then I find out, oh no, I do have attorneys
Mhm.
that are my clients, and they don't really practice real estate law. And
No.
it's very different. And there are a lot of things that they need to be aware of. But I did not know that when I started working. So it was very interested on finding out. I'm like, you didn't know that. I thought you
No.
knew. So, so
So
that was
attorneys definitely don't know. We don't know it all. We don't know
We
it
don't
all.
know it all. Yes. We
And
get
what's
the
important,
people.
yeah, you need to think of it like a doctor, right? I mean, if you for some reason broke your arm, are you gonna go to a brain surgeon? No, because the brain surgeon's not gonna know what to do with your arm. You know what I mean? So it's the same with lawyers. You know, if you're doing something when it gets to medical malpractice, you want a medical malpractice attorney. A medical malpractice attorney is not gonna know anything about real estate, and a real estate attorney is not gonna know anything about medical malpractice. So it's very important that you guide yourself with the area of law that you need help in, and make sure that whoever you're dealing with is an expert in that field.
good. Okay. I'm glad that you mentioned it. I wish I would have heard this like a long time ago because I just thought that they knew.
All the laws.
I don't know for some weird reason. Anyways, so let's say that a seller wants to, they have documents, they have a lot of documents to sign, like the full contract and like addendums and clauses that are added to a contract. If they wanted to, if they're being represented by you guys as their attorneys, if they have any questions on what does this really entails for them, would you be able to or be willing to meet with a seller to explain them the documents?
100%. And actually, something that we commonly do for a lot of our sellers when they're interested in selling the property is before the property even gets on the market, they'll
Right.
come to us and say, "Hey, listen, our realtors, listing the property. Can you give me some kind of an estimate of what my cost may look like?" And we will happily provide you with an estimate of your cost. We say estimate because we can only estimate what you are probably going to get the offer for, right? Because everything is really reliant on what the cost of the sale is going to be. And since you can't, have a fixed number on that, but we can provide you with a very close estimate of what your fees are going to be looking like in this market. So we do that a lot with our sellers, and it also puts them at ease because they know, okay, I need to accept an offer with at least this amount because this is what I'm trying to recover from a sale. And we work very closely with realtors, just like you, Dolly, who can
Yep.
be able to guide you in that market so that you know who, your client, your goal and who you want to attack as far as potential buyers.
Good. And by the way, if you guys didn't know, um, whomever those are watching our video, the sellers in the state of Florida, with the exception of like Miami-Dade and Broward County, and there might be a couple of other counties within the state, but with the exception of those little cities, I'm sorry, those little cities, the seller chooses the title company, their closing attorneys.
Hmm.
So the seller has the right to tell their own realtor saying, hey, I want to go ahead and close my deal with the VPP law firm. And you guys are based off Miami. However, I know you guys work in Tampa because
Right.
we have offices in Tampa, and then we have also offices in Jacksonville, and you guys work there. But is there any part of Florida that you guys do not work?
No, we
No.
work the entire state of Florida.
Okay. And ultimately, if you guys are not there, you will do like their Zoom calls or you send a remote notary, but
Right.
they will
So
have access to you directly if
right.
they
We
need.
do a lot of when we're talking about out of state. For instance, we last week we had a Hillsborough closing where we did a Zoom closing. We have the mobile notary that actually goes to our clients, the seller's property. We get on Zoom, and although we're not there in person, we are in there in via Zoom explaining the documents that you're signing. So you're fully understanding what's going on the day of closing, so you fully understand, okay, this is what I'm signing. This is what I have to do. These are my requirements. This is what I can expect. So yes, we will be there. If not in person, then definitely via Zoom.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you, ladies. Thank you for joining me every single week. So follow and subscribe our channel. And I will probably see you next week.
You
Talk to
will.
you guys
Sounds
soon.
good.
Bye.
Bye.